Hello, everybody. Welcome. How is everybody today? I am so excited that I am finally back with a live stream. I haven't been on a live stream for a really long time. Yes, so today's topic is how to be in a relationship and make it last. And I have prepared about 7 points. They may intertwine here and there, but I've prepared 7 points. I've asked you guys if you have questions for me. So a couple of people have already reached out with questions for me. But before we dive in, my name is Melanie Josephine, and if you're new to this channel, I'm a dating and relationship coach. I help women change their love life forever. I also have a brand new podcast, which is called Change Your Love Life Forever. It's on Apple Podcast and it is on Spotify. I actually don't know if it's on iTunes or if is iTunes and Apple Podcast the same? I don't know. Anyway, it is out there and it is amazing. I put all of my heart in this podcast and I have already recorded so many episodes. So check it out if you're interested. This podcast is all about love, all about relationships and dating. So it's about dating, finding a partner, but it is also just as much about being in a relationship, keeping a relationship, and having a fulfilling relationship, which is exactly what we're talking about today. So if you're here with me, feel free to say hi, and also feel free to put any questions into the chat box. And yes, let me just tell you how this is going to work today. I am going to start with point 1, and then here and there I'm gonna draw on the questions that I've already received and answer those questions, probably in between those points. And then at the very end, I'm going to talk a little bit about what it would be like working with me. But if you're not interested, then you can just sign up. Yes, so that's what we're gonna do. So the first point that I want to talk to you about is compromise. And the reason I want to talk about this first is when I started to prepare this live stream and I told people about my idea of doing this live stream, some people said, yes, a relationship is a lot of compromise. And I actually just Googled it before I got onto this live stream. And I want to read to you what the definition of a compromise is. It's an agreement or a settlement of a dispute that is reached by each side making concessions. So basically what this says is that when you make a compromise, you step back a little bit from what you wanted and you it kind of sounds negative. I don't know if it sounds negative to you. It kind of sounds negative to me. And when I thought about my relationship and making compromises, I would agree that there are situations where one would make a compromise, but I would not agree that I feel negative about that. To the contrary, I feel that where I make a compromise, and let's just take this example, not too long ago, I watched a football game with my boyfriend. And I don't like watching football games. I actually don't enjoy it much at all. And I didn't have to do it. That's the thing. I think a lot of things that we may think are a compromise, like our partner asks us to do something or go somewhere with them, we always have the option to say no. We can say no with love. We don't have to say no in a mean or in a rude way. And we can always say no with love. But if we say yes, what I did in this specific example is while we were watching, I was asking myself how I could enjoy this situation, what I could potentially learn this situation, maybe about my boyfriend. Can I view him in a different way? Can I experience something that he usually experiences on his own or with his mates. I just asked myself some questions that were helpful, that were going into a direction where I could draw positive answers from. Whereas if you think of something as negative from the start, it's almost like a bad seed. And therefore, I think there are a lot of situations where you potentially make a compromise, but you could. I have another example actually. If, let's say, your boyfriend wants to go out with his mates on a Friday night, but you had other plans with your partner, you wanted to do something with him, but he goes out with his mates, and now you have that time to yourself. So you could just sit home and say to yourself that it's really annoying that he made that choice, or that he likes to go out more with them than with you, or you could tell yourself all these negative stories. But you could also just tell yourself that sometimes he chooses to go out with his mates, and that's fine. And now it landed on a night where you wanted to do something with him, but it's fine because you can use that time to nurture yourself or to see your friends, or you can completely turn it around and make that evening about you. And I think that a lot of situations that may be labeled compromise in a negative way could potentially, if you look at them in a different way, be not so bad, or maybe even be good. I want to take the first question. So the first question that somebody wrote in was how to keep the spark alive in a long-term relationship. How do you keep the joy and laughs? Now, everybody would answer this a little bit differently, I think, but maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit because I have a point prepared. And it is actually point number 2. Okay. I wanted to talk about how our thoughts influence our relationships. And this applies to this question because to keep the spark alive, I mean, a spark is a feeling that comes from a thought. So what thought do you need to think to have a spark? And it is all about keeping, when you think back to the beginning of your relationship, what did you think about your partner then? How did you view them then? They're still the same person. So if you can draw from the thoughts that you had then, or even as a relationship evolves, I find that actually as a relationship evolves, it gets better. As you grow together, it gets better. And that you can definitely keep the joy and the laughs. I mean, sometimes we just spoke about compromises. Sometimes it is actually good to spend a little bit of time apart, and I don't mean separating. I mean spending time. He goes spend time with his friends. You go spend time with your friends, or you do a little bit of spa time or reading or whatever it is, just so that you can fill up your own cup and you can come back together, have a chat about everything that you experienced and have laughs together, and just share things that you have then gone out into the world and experienced your own, and you want to share that. So that's definitely something that you can do. But I think the second point that I wanted to mention in this live stream, that our thoughts influence our relationships. And this is a very interesting one. And I'm actually about to do a podcast on this. I'm about to do a podcast on what thoughts did not serve me in my relationship, because now, looking back at the previous year and what I've worked through, or what we've worked through together, I can see that there were certain thoughts that popped into my mind that were just not serving my relationship. And working through this has really made our relationship so much better. So I just want to give you a few examples, not necessarily from my own life, but generally speaking, what sort of thoughts do not bring much value to a relationship if you want to have a filling, lasting, loving relationship, which I'm sure you do because you're watching this. So I actually, let's just share, change my mind, let's just share one from last year. Last year, there were certain things, and one of them was booking holiday dates. And my mind offered the thought that he's just not going to do that unless I push him, unless I remind him 10 times. And this is something that's really not very helpful. And it wasn't very helpful in our relationship because all it created was tension. Tension for him, tension for me. Tension for him because he didn't feel like I trusted that he would do as he said. And tension for me because that's exactly what I thought. But what you must realize is that we create our results with our thoughts. I mentioned the model very often, but for those of you who don't know what a model is, I'm just quickly going to explain. Our thoughts lead into our feelings. Depending on what we think, this is how we then feel. Our feelings lead to our actions, and our actions lead to our results. But because everything starts with a thought, this is why it's so important what you think in your relationship and about your relationship. What you think when you don't see your partner is just as important as what you think when you're together, like, and how you show up, what sort of energy you bring to the table. I wrote also down, for example, a thought like, I believe in my relationship, we will always be together, or I will always love my partner. These are thoughts that are leading to a fulfilling and loving future together. Because when you think, I will always love my partner, how do you feel? I assume you probably feel love in your heart. Then that's going to be in your action. You're going to be really kind to your partner, really empathetic. And then the result is that you both feel the love and that you both that you both really enjoy the relationship. So your thoughts have a really big influence on your relationship. And so when it comes to this question, how to keep the spark alive, I could give you a lot of tools. Like I could say, go out on a date night again, or have a picnic in the park. And those things are all good and great, but you really need to ask yourself what you need to be thinking about your relationship to keep the spark and to keep the laughs. And what is it about your partner? Like, what does he or she like? What would bring the spark out in him? Like, how could you surprise him or her, for example? Those are the sort of things you need to think about. Since I have jumped ahead and I already talked about the second point, I am now going to take the second question. This one is a really good question. All questions are really good questions. But this one, so I need to translate this because it's in German. So it says, how can I leave triggering points behind? Like she was saying, if there are things that my partner does and they trigger something within me, how can I let go of that? This is a really, really amazing question. And I think that anybody in a relationship or who's done any sort of relationship work can totally relate to this. And especially when I think about I just published a new interview on my channel about shadow work with Andrea. You must watch it, it's so good. But basically, what you're asking me is how, or at least this is what it sounds like, how you can, as fast as possible, just get rid of this issue. Because when you say trigger, you don't say it in this question, but I assume that it triggers some shape of negative emotion, maybe frustration, maybe anger, maybe sadness, maybe disappointment. And you don't want to feel this way because as human beings, we are inclined to always want to feel positive emotion and move away from negative emotion. But what we must accept is that negative emotion are part of life, and they have a crucial part in our life, and sometimes we must feel them. I mean, when I say must, obviously I can't force you to feel them, but if you don't feel your feelings now, they're going to come back to you later, and probably um, bigger because they grow inside you. It's this example that you've probably heard before. The further you push a ball underwater, the when it comes up, the higher it's going to jump. So the more you push those negative emotions down, and if your partner keeps triggering and triggering you, and you just keep pushing down, then at some point you're probably going to feel depressed, or you feel like you need to go to therapy, which is not a problem. It's actually very helpful if you go to therapy or if you work with a coach. But what I'm saying is, feelings are there to be felt. And the other thing is this, and this is actually very, very important. So, when you get triggered, rather than ask yourself, how can I get rid of this? Ask yourself, what is being triggered within me? Why do I feel this way? What's coming up for me? And sit with it. If it happens in the middle of the day, you don't have time, plan time, sit with it later, explore it, get curious, really get curious about this. And when you really allow to move through it, to work through it, you will come out at the other end. So that's your part of the story. That's your journey to explore all these different points on where you get triggered. Maybe journal about it. Maybe sit with some relaxing music or a meditation. But what I can say about points that trigger you is that they trigger you because they need to rise to the surface for you to learn something, for you to ask yourself, what am I supposed to learn here? What am I supposed to take away from this? This is why it's coming up. All right. The next point, I've combined one here. So I wrote down being responsible for your own happiness, not making your partner responsible, self-work, self-development. What I mean is working on your relationship by working on yourself. I think this is so interesting because a lot of us want to make it about our partner. Our partner's doing this, or our partner's doing that, or our partner's triggering us, or our partner has done this annoying thing. Or our partner should come to couples counseling with us, or our partner should just be different. All these things are not actually that helpful. These are the things that make people break up. And this is exactly why I chose to do this live stream today, because I think that, I'm not saying nobody should ever break up, but I think that there are a lot of situations where it's not necessary to break up. There may be a period of time where you need to work through things, but it's so worth it to do that and come out at the other end. And also, there's nothing wrong with going to couples counseling or therapy or anything like this. But this point number 3, I just want you to focus on yourself. And actually, the question before was a perfect question leading up to this. Because if you use what's triggering you in this relationship and you bring that towards the work with yourself, that's absolutely perfect. Like, how can you evolve by being with this person? What can you learn from being with this person? And how can you be more responsible for your own happiness? It's very, very easy to think, oh, my partner isn't doing X, Y, and Z, and that's why I'm not happy. Or he is doing X, Y, and Z, and that's why I'm not happy. But in those situations, you really need to remind yourself that it is you who's responsible for your happiness. And you need to ask yourself how you can bring that happiness into your life. And that usually goes back to the thoughts, what we talked about previously. What do I need, or what do I want to be thinking about this situation, or what do I want to be thinking about ourselves? Because very often when our partner does something or doesn't do something, we think we're so annoyed about that. But really, when we make it about ourselves, oftentimes we think if he loved me, he would do it a different way. Or I've told him this so many times, and if he loved me. But if that's the case, this is all about your self-worth. If you can give that to yourself, if you can go for a walk and tell yourself 100 times how much you love yourself, you're filling up your own cup. Then you come home and your partner drops a glass of water on the floor, or he didn't clean the bathroom, or whatever it is, and you don't care because you're just so happy because you told yourself everything that you needed to hear. You didn't need him to do it. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't tell your partner to clean the bathroom, or that you shouldn't split the chores or whatever. That's not what I'm trying to say. But what I'm trying to say is that simply this, that you're responsible for your own happiness, full stop. I want to take the next question. This is also very interesting. The next question is, how long do you need to know someone to know if they're the one? And is trust one of the most important qualities in a relationship? My parents-in-law say it's compatibility. Maybe I wrote this down wrong. So this is a good question. First of all, there is no time limit. I love that. When I was younger, I would always actually believe in this. I'm so glad that I don't believe in this anymore, because love is not about time. You can fall in love with somebody today, you can fall in love with somebody tomorrow, you can wait to tell somebody that you love them 3 months, 6 months, or you can tell them, well, I wouldn't tell them too soon, because they might feel like you're just rushing into this a bit too soon. But what I'm trying to say is that there is no right time. And the one, that's really interesting. The one is like this mysterious person who comes down from heaven, and they're magically the perfect person for us. But what really happens, or what needs to happen, is that we create in our own mind who we want to be with, and we spend so much time with that person in our thoughts that we draw that person to us. Now, if we don't take the time to do that, there is still something going on in the back of our mind. It may not be what we consciously want to attract, but there is something going on. So if we attract somebody who we're not sure about, or we're actually not so happy about, that's because we didn't take the time to begin with to really create what we want. So yeah, you could really answer this question one way or another, but also I wouldn't really say that I believe in just the one, because when you focus on the qualities of somebody, there could be like a potential number of people who have those qualities that you could potentially attract, depending on where are you in the world and what radius are you attracting this person. So I think that if I was to define the one, I would probably say the one is the one who is oh my gosh, I keep saying the one who has like most of the qualities that you wanted to attract. Or if you meditate, if you have like a really, really close relationship to God or the universe or whatever you want to call it, you can always ask, is this the one? Send me a sign. The universe answers. It's so interesting. The universe knows if you're meant to be with this person. And if you're meant to be with this person, doesn't mean everything has to be perfect. Could also mean that you grow together. And about your other questions, trust is, I think trust is a feeling that comes from a thought. But if you think like, I can trust this person, then you create trust. But Also, this idea, is it whether we should have a lot of things in common or is it something else? That's up to you. That goes back to your thoughts. If you think that the perfect relationship is if we have these, and these things in common, then that's what you create. Then if you meet that person, you feel like, oh my goodness, this is absolutely perfect because I wanted to have all these things in common. But if you put the focus somewhere else, let's say you want somebody who is reliable, responsible, loving, caring, but you don't really care how much you have in common, like what sort of interests this person has or what sort of hobbies. You could have a lot of things not in common, but you could have a belief that that doesn't matter. In fact, I have a friend who may potentially be watching this right now who told me that she doesn't have like a whole lot of things in common with her husband, and they make it a point to get together for the things that they do have in common or that they just want to enjoy together. But it's not in their way that they could choose a thought like, we shouldn't be together because we don't have anything in common, or they could choose a thought like, we love each other, we care about each other, we created an amazing life together, we don't need to have everything in common, we can take time apart and enjoy our different interests, and then coming back together, going back to the first question, actually, everything's coming together in this live stream is so amazing. And just share that and bring that spark into the relationship, because you're not spending every minute together. Although some people have the spark, even though they spend every minute together, it's really what you believe. I had this conversation with my partner last weekend, and he doesn't believe that a couple should spend every minute together. But it really depends what one believes. And that's really what it comes down to. Now, where are we? Okay, I want to talk a little bit about, I wrote down understanding your partner's point of view, not just your own. I think especially when you disagree on something or you want something a certain way, you have created all this evidence in your mind why that's the right way. But your partner, who has a different brain and who has different thoughts than you, has created all the evidence why he or she wants things a certain way too. So what really helps is to think about where they're coming from. Why are they making the point that they're making? And is there potentially a compromise that you could make? Everything's coming together in a circle. It's so amazing. So I think that sometimes it can be so hard, especially, let's say you're upset or you're angry, but maybe just allow yourself to feel that and to calm down and then think, where is my partner coming from? Because he or she, they are your partner, so you probably know them pretty well, and you may have an answer. And you could also ask them in a calm and loving way and just have a conversation about it. I find that when we open up, when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, then remember, vulnerability is the birthplace of love. This is exactly where the magic happens. It is also how you always bring more love and trust into your relationship. The more you find these moments where you open up to each other, where you allow that space to do that. And okay, I want to answer the last question. I need to go. I took a screenshot. So this is a good one too. Okay, I have a couple of friends who have been married or in a relationship for a long time. One 20 years, another 30 years of marriage. And now they want to make the most of their time in their lives with travel and maybe moving, but their partners don't want to budge. The partners are content staying close to home in familiar routines. They find themselves feeling stuck and frustrated in old patterns of interaction. Do they just accept it, make the best of it, At this point, the idea of separating seems daunting and mostly out of the question. What to do? How do they open up to explore when their partners aren't interested? This is a very good question. So, now I don't know if your friends actually want to move to a completely different place in the world, or if this is simply about traveling around, because it really comes back to you're responsible for your own happiness. So if you want to go and travel for a month or travel for 2 or 3 months, you can absolutely do that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just your thoughts holding you in a stuck place, because you mentioned the word stuck. So if you keep thinking of it in a stuck way, like my partner doesn't want to go, I don't want to separate, but those are not the only two options. There are, when you open up to all the possibilities in this universe, there are so many. And the thing is, when you take responsibility for your own happiness, then your partner might actually come around. And I experienced that in my own relationships, because there were things that I wanted to do, that I wanted my partner to join, but it just wasn't his thing. And when I realized actually it's not such a big deal, I'm happy to do some of these things on my own. Now he's also happier to join some of them, if you see what I mean. So it really depends, but don't make your partner responsible. Like, let's say you stay with a feeling of resentment because you feel like your partner's holding you back from doing the things that you want to do. But actually, if you just want to travel around a bit, and maybe you tell yourself, but I want to travel around with my partner, I don't want to travel around with myself. But that's also a belief that's limiting you right now. What I would really suggest, because I also don't know all the details of this, is to really, really open up and allow all the possibilities that really are out there. Really open up to them, because as long as you stay with the thought that he doesn't want to go, I want to go, I'm stuck, that keeps you stuck. But open up the question, what possibilities are out there, and ask yourself, what is the most loving thing for everyone involved? What's the most loving thing for you? What's the most loving thing for your partner? And what options are there? That's what I would say. Let me just quickly see if there was something that I didn't mention yet. So I wrote down focusing on what's right in the relationship and not on what's wrong. Sometimes easier said than done, but the more you view your relationship through the lens of what's right, the more you are going to enjoy it. It's very easy to get stuck in a pattern of he didn't do this and I didn't like this, and you view this world through a lens of, okay, what else did he do wrong? I mean, you may not intentionally think that's what you're doing, but if you keep finding evidence of what he's doing wrong, then you might be doing this unintentionally. So my suggestion is focus on what's right, not on what's wrong. Then another thing I want to mention is humor and curiosity. Bring humor and curiosity into the relationship. If he's not doing something, find the humor in this, or find the curiosity. Why? Because what you send out is what you bring back. If you come into the situation angry, frustrated, you're like, oh, you haven't done it. I've told you so many times. Come on. And then he jumps onto those negative emotions that you put out there, and he brings that back to you. But if you come around the corner and surprise him, and you're like, hey, you haven't done this. And you're going to surprise yourself, and he's going to be so surprised, because he is like, oh my goodness, what's going on? She's usually angry if I don't do this thing. So just change the pattern. Do something different. You can only create change with change. If you keep everything the way that you've done it before, you will always receive the same things. And if it's not what you want, you need to change something. So that's a really good one. Okay, we're coming to the end. I quickly just want to mention one more time. You should really check out my live stream. It's really good. No, my podcast, Change Your Love Life Forever by Melanie Josephine, or with Melanie Josephine. It's really good. Check it out. And follow me. So how could you work with me? If you feel that you want to work with a life coach and maybe you feel like I could be the one, then just message me on Instagram, DM me there, Melanie Josephine Coaching, or you could go straight to my website and go to contact me. My website is melaniejosephine.com. Let me just quickly explain what coaching is. Coaching is different to therapy, but there could be aspects of it so therapy is more working through your past. Coaching is being in the present, creating the future that you want, empowering yourself. So if we take relationships and if your relationships aren't working or you haven't found the partner that you are looking for, you are probably thinking thoughts that are not serving you. And if you've been looking for a really long time and you've created these patterns of being frustrated and annoyed that isn't working, probably already have written a book in your mind of all the evidence of why it's not working or why there just aren't any good guys out there, and all these things that you may think are not holding you back, but they are. And it is just so worth it to explore them. To explore them with a coach, and maybe with somebody who's gone through the same thing, because I have. It took me 4 years, and it doesn't have to take this long, but it was just layers after layers after layers and realizations, and then finally I was just like, I want a breakthrough. So it's also how much you want it. How much is this what you want? How much is this your goal? But if you are clear on what you want, the only reason you're not working with a coach yet, whether this is me or another coach, is because you don't believe that that would change something. But has it changed something for other people? Yes, it has. It has changed something in my clients. It has changed something in me when I got help and I changed my love life around. And it can certainly change your love life as well. You just need to take that first step forward. A coach is like, imagine yourself in a picture frame and the coach can see it. They can see you in that picture frame, but you're in it. You can't see it. You have all these thoughts spiraling around and you don't know where you're going. You need structure and direction so that you can get from A to B. Just like Google Maps take you from one place to the place that you want to go. That's kind of what a coach does in your life. That's what a life coach does. So, with that being said, if you feel you want to contact me, then that probably means you should contact me. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's live stream. If you have ideas for other live stream ideas, send them to me. If you want to leave me a comment down below with a question or something that you want to share about this topic, I would love that. And with that being said, I just wish you a wonderful week, sending you so much love from London, and until next time, bye!